Hello, here we are. It's June, and you are likely wrapping up your school year and hopefully looking forward to your summer break. As we come to the end of the school year, I wanted to share with you today a reflection practice that I learned many, many years ago when I was student teaching in a third grade classroom. This practice I carried with me throughout my career as an educator, and I'm hoping that it's something that you might find useful as well. Let me set the scene a little bit for you. So, like I said, I was teaching in a third grade classroom, student teaching in a third grade classroom. And my very first day, of course, I spent watching my cooperating teacher teach the students that day. But at the end of the day, she sat me down and said, I have three questions that I want to ask you. What went well today? What didn't go well? And what would I do differently? At first, I was a little thrown off by this line of questioning because I didn't feel like I was equipped to tell her what didn't go well, right? So it was a little bit awkward conversation, but that's okay because it started me on a path of becoming a reflective practitioner. When we ended our conversation that very first day, she then asked me to, take out a notebook at the end of each day and ask myself these three questions. And what this led me to do is really think about my days by starting off with that positive question of what went well, but then really thinking about what didn't go so well and what might I do differently the next day. I found this to be a very useful practice. Like I said, I carried it through my years as an educator. I didn't always write it down in a book. I didn't always do it every day. Sometimes I did it in the car on the way home, but it just kind of became who I was. And I think it really strengthened my teaching practice. But what really, another way that I really found it to be beneficial was at the end of that school year. You've taught all year, you're tired, you're excited about the summer, but you're also sad because your students are, moving on. So it was a really nice way for me to kind of wrap up my school year and then look forward to my summertime while knowing I have generated some ideas about what I might do differently. So I'm going to walk you through this practice today. And the way I'm going to walk you through the practice is based on my role currently interacting and working with students. One of the best parts of my job here at Read Naturally is being able to volunteer in a classroom working with students who are working with Read Live. So I spend an hour a week at Churchill Elementary School, that is where I actually spent the majority of my career as an educator. But I work in their Title I classroom, supporting their students who are using Read Live. So at the beginning of the year, I help them out with their third grade group of kids who are coming for intervention. But then as their first graders are starting to transition into working in Read Naturally Live, they're ready about, end of December, beginning of January, I transition to then help them out with their first graders. I get to do things like placing students at Read Naturally Live and Word Warm-Ups Live. I can do student training to get those first graders really trained on how to use the program with fidelity. I get to run the students through those assessments, that periodic assessment of fluency I can do for them, the phonics and word analysis assessments. And then this year I was able to pilot some test items for a new program that we are working on regarding phonemic awareness. And then I'm able to provide that support and mentoring to those teachers and paraprofessionals that are using the program. So my reflection starts with question number one: what went well? Well, in the fall, what we did is we had a meeting long before we were going to be working with students, and we did a review of the program. We talked about what the new features were. I was able to explain to them what the periodic assessment of fluency is and how they would use that with their students, how to use the phonics and word analysis assessment. We did a refresher on the program just to remind them how to set their students up, how to place their students, how to get their students trained using those student training videos, how to individualize their instruction with those story options and data mentor recommendations, and then recommending to any of the teachers who were new to the program or who really wanted a more in-depth refresher course to complete that online course that we have for teachers. So starting off our year by gathering together and talking about our plan and how we're going to implement the program was really, really beneficial. Another thing that goes well is there's such great teacher buy-in. The teachers have been using Read Naturally programs for well over 25 years. They believe in the programs because they have seen the results that their students get by using the program. So they implement it with fidelity, they believe in the program, and their enthusiasm just causes their students to be enthusiastic about working in the program too. Another thing that works really well is their school-wide system of support. They honor that intervention time. They know that there will be students who need intervention, so they build into their schedule time for intervention for reading and math. Um, they make decisions on who needs intervention that are data driven. They're so good at Churchill at identifying what their students need and providing it for their students so they can, try to get them caught up, close that learning gap, and get them back to their grade level expected performance. So that system of support really helps an implementation of a program work successfully. And then they have high expectations for their students. They know that their students are being challenged, but they believe that they can rise up and meet their high expectations. They train their students really well in using the program. And like I said, their students make those impressive gains that they really recognize. Their students recognize them when they're looking at their graphs, but the teachers really honor and recognize the gains that the students are making as well. And then as a bonus this year, at Read Naturally, we had a new program come out called Comprehension Builder. And I was able to get one of my teachers that I work with at the school to pilot that program and provide us some excellent feedback. So now that second question is going to ask that it's the hard one, right? It's going to ask, well, what didn't go as well as you would have hoped? And so reflecting on this, I came up with about 4 things that I thought maybe could have gone a little bit better. It doesn't mean that it was bad. It just means it maybe could have been just a little bit better. So relationship building, recognizing that it's a little bit harder to build relationships when I'm only spending 1 hour per week working with the students. You don't want to just get in there and get them right to reading, although it's so important to use as much time as you can during intervention. Spending, getting the kids working in the program and doing that reading. It's also important that kids know that you like them and that you believe in them and you know that they're going to do good work. And so recognizing that it's important I don't want to just be the lady who shows up 1 day a week and asks them to read, right? I want them to know that I am there to help them read, but I'm also there because I care about them as a person and I want to get to know them. So, just figuring out a way to make a better connection with the students that I work with, I feel like is something that could go a little bit better. Another thing is assuming that my students already knew how to do each step. Now, I'm talking mostly about my older students who had worked through the program before, or maybe they'd been trained, so I just assumed that they've got it now. And then I might have been surprised when they maybe didn't do a step the way that they were supposed to. So making that assumption that they know how to do it could be a little bit better, and I can address some ways, and I can now that I'm aware of it, I can think of ways to deal with that differently. And then student frustration. I never like to see students getting frustrated, but it's also important to honor the struggle, right? There's something to be said for productive struggle. So guiding the students when they get frustrated, they might get frustrated when they don't meet their goal, when they really thought that they were ready to pass that hot timing score, and just finding ways to support that. But recognizing that frustration is sometimes part of the process and helping them with that. And then just that there's never enough time. I'd be working with a student and I'd think, all right, we're going to get through the hot timing and then the pass review step, and then you look at the clock and the bell's about to ring in 1 minute. So you're not going to get there. And knowing the student worked so hard and really wanted to finish that story. So just never enough time. Doesn't mean there's a solution for it, but just acknowledging that is something that can be a little bit difficult. And of course, that leads us to question number 3. What would I do differently? It's always fun to think about what you might do differently. I like to I'm a planner, so I like to think ahead. So in looking ahead to next year, what might I want to do differently? I think I'm going to work a little bit harder at those connections with those students. So when I come in, I'm not the person who's just like, all right, let's go, let's get to work. We're going to be logging in and reading today. That's important, right? And we need all the time we can getting those kids reading. But kids do better when they feel connected to people that they are working with. They will rise to the occasion if they know that you like them and that you're interested in them and you believe in them. So just making an effort to ask, what books are you reading, or what activities are you in, or what hobbies do you have? And then remembering that, so the next time that you meet with them, you can take a few seconds and touch base on those things before you're getting down to that important reading time. With those kids who get frustrated, if I could just connect with the teachers they always assign students for me to work with. So just a quick connection, like, hey, anything specific that works with this student that might help me out when with my time spent with them might be able to help me support the students when they do hit those frustrations or struggle to complete the steps the way that they are supposed to. I thought it might be really nice to do some sort of a little bit like maybe a sticker rewards or something where I can honor those students with either a chart or giving them a sticker when they are not only doing things correctly, but when they're working really hard to get better at doing things or they meet their goal or they exceed their goal. So something they can look forward to, possibly earning some sort of a little tiny reward from me with their time that we spend together. And then remember, I talked about we did that meeting at the beginning of the year and we talked about the program and the new features and then kind of a refresher course. I think next year, what I would like to do is do a mid year meeting and just follow up with those teachers and say, how is that periodic assessment of fluency working for you? Or do you have any questions on Data Mentor or, anything about the program? Just finding time to carve out to just sit with those teachers and then help support them in their implementation. So, as you head into your summer, I would like to put forth a challenge. I challenge each of you to take a few minutes as you're wrapping up your school year and heading into your summer to answer these three questions. What went well? What didn't? And what would I do differently? Please share with us here at Read Naturally if you give this practice a try, or if you have a current reflective practice that you'd like to share with us. We would love to hear from you as well. Have a fantastic, wonderful, relaxing, well deserved summer.